So Reddit, the online social network that is used for sharing comments, memes, doing AMAs, or Asks Me Anything, and sharing news and similar scary things, and I'm kidding, is now going to allow Google's AI to be trained on all of this. Now this news comes just days after Reddit, which allows you to be anonymous and post on its communities, or which are called subreddits, announced its plans for an initial public offering, and there was a rumor that it has signed a deal with an AI company for giving data. Now it's revealed that there are some strategic data arrangements that it has signed to leverage its vast user-generated content for AI development. Now, what is this user-generated content, right? So Reddit and its IPO filing has said that it's signed a $60 million deal with Google for Google to use Reddit data for training. Now you might remember that in June last year, Reddit had closed its API access, which allowed third-party apps to basically post and get data from Reddit. It revised that API policy by introducing a premium access tier, signaling that it plans to make money from giving third-party app developers access to Reddit. Now, what are these, like I said, what are these data resources and why should you care? Now, Reddit CEO Steve Huffman has been quite vocal about not giving away Reddit's data freely, especially considering the depth and the personal nature of the content shared by its users. Reddit, if you've used it, is full of conversations between users which are sometimes funny, which are silly, can be wacky, and sometimes really profound. Like Reddit forums are a lot of fun, and people are quite quirky because they're also anonymous there, right? There are your conversations on Reddit. AI chatbots actually become conversational because they're trained on how we speak to each other or chat with each other online. And so this data of how people are engaging with each other is very useful for them. So, there's an old saying that if something is available on the internet for free, then you are the product. This basically proves that, your data and what you say on Reddit is actually their product. They're making $60 million off it. And a friend of mine used to say that it's not user-generated content, it's actually loser-generated content. You create the content and Reddit makes the money. So, this is, if you think about it, Reddit is one of the 4 key platforms where the maximum human-to-human text-based conversations happen. That the others are Facebook, Twitter, and Gmail. So their data is actually very valuable for AI companies, and 3 of them, which is Facebook that has Llama, Twitter which has Grok, and Google which has Gemini now, they all have their own AI. Of course, Reddit could have also built its own AI chatbot and compete with the others. But remember, remember that Twitter did something similar. It closed its API access for bots and built its own chatbot called Grok, which it offers as a premium service to Twitter Blue users. But sorry, I just can't get over how used to saying Twitter I am instead of what it's currently called, X. X's chatbot is called Grok, and of course X will have to figure out how to make money using this chatbot and have to compete with other bots, whereas Reddit gets the money upfront and probably get this money or get similar money annually whoever it licenses its or your content to. And Reddit's strategic positioning is sort of a recognition of the inherent value of its user-generated content, which is very, very conversational, like I've said. And it's not a new choice. Like we've seen a similar strategy from Mozilla, for example, which runs the Firefox browser. It could have built its own search engine, but really it survives and makes money from Google by making Google search the default search on its browser. So Reddit is, instead of trying to build its own bot, is basically giving that bot to other players or giving that data to other players. Now, the other thing is that this is a very difficult and a different ethical choice in terms of AI training practices. It raises questions about the future of AI development and the role of user consent in data usage, and of course the potential for similar agreements across the social media landscape. Like, did you give your consent to Reddit to sell the data of your conversations to train some other company's AI? It's probably in the terms and conditions that I haven't read, you probably haven't read, and frankly nobody cares about. I mean, how many people would actually have not used the platform if they knew that this was in the terms and conditions? Nobody cares. At the same time, do remember that Reddit users are also quite combative with the platform. In fact, thousands of Reddit forums or subreddits had actually gone private for a 48-hour period last June in protest against the move to put a price on API access, because several developers had expressed concerns about the viability of their services under the new pricing policy. And the thing is that unlike Facebook, which employs people for content moderation, Reddit actually benefits from mostly unpaid moderators called, or what we call mods, who keep the site somewhat civil, and they clean up irrelevant content from groups or from subreddits and illegal content sometimes. So I don't know how they'll react when they find out that it's not just third-party API that is now priced, which they protested against, but now that data is being sold to Google. It's going to be a very tricky situation for Reddit to navigate as well. And the other thing is that this move could encourage other platforms to follow suit in terms of putting a premium on data access and potentially transforming how AI models are trained through licensed content. This development comes at a time when AI firms, including OpenAI, are actually facing legal scrutiny over the use of copyrighted content without proper permissions, without proper compensation, without proper agreements in place. The New York Times has taken OpenAI to court for copyright violation, basically saying that OpenAI's ChatGPT was trained on New York Times articles without those articles being licensed by OpenAI. And AI bots are all over the internet scraping data and information from websites without licensing it. I remember when we shifted servers, we were inundated with AI bots trying to scrape content from our sites. Licensing agreements could become the norm going forward, and what this also means is that only those services that can afford to pay lots of major websites like the New York Times and Reddit will be able to build high quality AI chatbots. Independent chatbots might not really have the resources to train on this data, and it is already very, very costly to train chatbots because the cost of GPUs is so expensive. I believe it's over $100 million for each training cycle. So anyway, like I mentioned earlier, the Reddit community can be quite combative. Let's see how they react to this situation. Meanwhile, just remember that anything you say publicly online is probably being used to train someone's AI somewhere. So be careful what you say.